Alright, howdy everybody, and welcome back to another fun little intermediate tutorial while we prepare for our next major NES tutorial. Today we are going to be working with eases. This is something I've been wanting to do for a while because my old ease script was built in GMS 1.4 and the code was looking kind of ugly compared to my current day ability to program. And I wanted to make an ease system that would let you make eases that are natural and useful. Now, what is an ease, you might ask? Sometimes they're called tweens. It's basically another way of doing a lerp. So you have a lerp or a approach or anything like those. You have different scripts that you can use to do different types of motions. Well, instead of being just tied to frames directly, the eases are tied to time, and in this case, frames as well, I guess, since you do it over time. But instead of being like 20 frames you do it for 60 seconds, which, as it turns out, is also 60 times whatever frames. So, yeah, it's basically time instead of over a period. So what do we have here? We have all these eases. We have all sorts of different eases, and what do? Well, they give you natural looking motion. There we go. They give you natural looking motion over a period of time. So let's say you want to move you have a menu and you want it to very quickly come off the side. Whoops, hit my microphone there. You want to very quickly have the menu pop out, but then you want it to sort of slow down as you get closer to the final position. That would be an ease there. You could do something like out quadratic or something. So let's see what these look like here. Right now, we have this all very slow because I have it slowed down to 5 seconds for the ease because it's necessary to be able to see the ease in action most appropriately if you have more time. So let's move over to a more powerful ease. So 13, you can see it starts very slowly and then picks up speed over time, and there's other things. That's an ease in out where it starts slow, gets real fast in the middle, then slows down as you get towards the end again. Here's some fun ones that people like. Being able to bounce around like that. And of course, here's the big bounce system. You bounce, go in, bounce back. So this is a useful one where you have it go towards your position, but then it slightly overshoots and then goes back. That's a good one that people usually need. Anyway, so as you can see, we have a couple different things going on here. We have this chest, which is going from this position to this position. We have this little white box over there. That is our ease. So when we create an ease, we create an object, obj ease. And the number just tells us what number it is over here, since I didn't want to bother writing it all out. So let's look at the code here a little bit closer. So we have this script called Easings. You give it a type, which is contained here. A start position, so like x equals 0. An end position, x equals 42 or x equals negative 100, doesn't matter. A duration, so you say I want this to go over 60 frames or 1 second or however you want to set it up, but it has to be in frames. Then a timer, which is the timer that's counting the frames out as you go. And you'll want to take a look at all this code if you want to copy it and use it for yourself. Then we got all this. Got our ease types here. We have linear, which isn't really so much an ease as it's just, I put it in there because it's really easy to put in there. In sign, out sign, in out. You might say that all of these are pretty much the same, except they're just faster variants of themselves. So they'll start, so the ends, they would start fast and then get slowed down as they go towards the end, or it's the other way around. I don't know which. I can never remember. So it, the more so you go sine, quad, cubic, quart, quint, expo. The higher you go on here, the faster it moves in that fast phase. And circular is almost similar, except it is now in a more arc pattern. So you get a longer, fast section. Then you got the back, which is the one that overshoots, elastic, and bounce. So we got a couple of variables that we create called position, which is our timer divided by our duration. If you remember your basic physics, x is equal to time divided by duration in a non-accelerating frame. Magnitude is the absolute value of the start minus the end. So we want to know how far we are going to be moving. And by using the ABS, we can get the absolute value no matter where it is. And displacement is equal to 0. That's what we're going to be calculating in each one of these places. So for linear, the math is really easy. We have magnitude times position. So again, that's just velocity times our current, let's see, our velocity times our, okay, I can't remember exactly the formula. It's V equals, velocity equals distance over time, isn't it? Yeah, velocity equals distance over time. So therefore, this is our time. Anyways, can't think of it off the top of my head. So anyways, we have our magnitude. So let's say we're moving 20 x from x start to x end. It would be a 20 pixel move. And if we're at 0.5 from our timer divided by duration, that would give us 10 pixels. And it would tell us to move by 10 pixels. So then we take the displacement, come all the way down here to the end. We can delete all that. And we say if start is greater than or equal to the end, then we return our start minus displacement. So this is so that we can go in either direction. Else return start plus displacement. So 0 plus 10 gives us 10 as our current position. Yeah, if we started at 0. And let me move this over a little bit here. I'm going to stretch it out here. So you can pause and go through this as you go. So we have switch based on the type from right over here. The ease type. And we have the code for each one of these. So we have our linear, our sine, our quad, our cubic. Pause here if you need to copy all this stuff. Quart, quint, expo, exponential. And at this point I start getting kind of fancy with the code here. I don't know if you'll understand exactly what's going on here, but the idea is the same as an if-else if, except we're using ternaries to do all of our coding. So we have underscore position is equal to 0, then return 0. Else if position is equal to 1, return 1. Else if position is less than 0.5, then return power blah blah blah. Else return this. And the problem with doing it this way is that you end up with some weird you have to do all these weird parentheses to get it to work properly. But because unfortunately GameMaker isn't able to parse it just directly, so you'd be able to just do it without. So you'd be able to do it without those, but unfortunately it can't parse it properly like that. So anyways, then we have a circular. Then we have our back. And then we have our elastic. And again, I do the if-else-if stuff here. And last but not least, we have bounce. Bounce is actually... Whoops. There we go. Bounce is actually very complicated because unlike the other options, bounce actually is self-referential. So you you have this ease out bounce right here, which has all the code. And then for each of these other types of bounces, you actually just do the ease out bounce, but then you do a little bit of math to convert it into the in bounce and into the in out bounce. So you end up self-referencing the out bounce to make it work, and here you actually do the in bounce, which then self-references the out bounce, which then goes into the in out bounce. So, and last but not least, just a default return 404 if for some reason somebody does something that causes an error. There's no particular significance to that other than the HTML error. And then, as I showed you earlier, at the very end, we return our value, our displacement plus our start position. So that will let us figure out where we should be. So make sure you copy all that. To make it work, we actually have this object ease, which has a type, a start and end, a duration, the current frame, which is the timer that we're going to be passing into the Easings script, a value, which is what the current value is that we are generating, and this forward variable, which we're used for determining what direction the ease is moving in. We have over here a user event 0, and all we do with the user event 0 is we set the value of value to Easings and pass it all this variable information. And we also have this post draw where we destroy the ease once we've actually reached the end of the ease. So once the end is equal to the value, or the start is equal to the value, if we're going forward or not forward, then we destroy this because we don't need it anymore. Let's see, what else do we got going here? So let's come over to our object that we're going to ease around, our chest. It has this type, start in duration, and a fall ease variable, which are very important to all of these, and the forward and image speed again as well. So coming over to our step event, this is actually the code that creates our ease and directs its motion. The rest of this is just for other stuff, but it's not necessary for the eases to work. So we have a fall ease variable. This stores the ID of the ease object that we create. And we use the script called easeCreate to create our script, to create our ease object. So in production code, you probably wouldn't even bother having all of these variables right here, because you just put them in here directly unless you wanted to be able to edit them for some reason. All it does is just creates the ease object by passing the variables from here into the ease object that we create. And you, of course, can edit where the ease object appears. Probably want to put it like -64, -64, so to make sure that it doesn't ever actually appear inside of the game room. and it returns the ID of the ease object that we create. Then what do we do with the ease ID that we create? We now use it to change whatever variable we want. So in this case I'm using y, but I could just as easily use x. And we ease forward our fall ease. How does ease forward work? It just triggers the user event 0 in our ease object, increases the current frame, and makes sure that forward is set to true, and then returns the current value of the ease. Then if instance exists, fall ease, and we're currently moving forward, then we want to continue to use our fall ease. Or if the fall ease instance exists and we are going in reverse, then we would actually use reverse, which is pretty much the same thing, except we make sure that our current frame goes backwards and we set forward to false. That way, instead of going forward, we subtract from the frame that we're looking at. So in this case, if we were to have this and I press space, we can actually go in reverse, and we can just do that forever. If you want to have like a menu that player can open and then, oh wait, I didn't want to open that, so we can cancel the opening action in the middle of the opening action, and it would all reverse back into its starting position at that point. That would be kind of thing you could do with this. And draw, we're just drawing the self and the little string that shows what ease type we're currently using. And over here in our control code, I'll let you see this, but it's not really all that important. The important takeaway is ease create, ease forward, ease reverse, and of course the Easings script. And the ease object, I guess, as well. And in this case, this just, if I press space, we go forward to not forward, so we reverse. And when we get to our final position, we open up the chest, do a little animation with the smoke and whatnot. And if we press delete, we start the room. And if we mouse wheel up or down, it changes the ease type, so and resets the ease. And if our instance doesn't exist and I press space again, then instead of trying to reverse, we will just restart the ease. Alright, cool. So that's everything. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you learned something about how to use eases to make your game look much better. Though eases are not easy. Okay, well, I'll punch myself here. Sorry about that. So yeah, have fun with all this code, and I'm going to be currently working on redoing the 2D collision system. Hopefully that'll be available next week, and after that we'll actually get started on the new NES Game Maker tutorial. So that's my proposed roadmap currently. I was originally going to do something about beautifying your games as well, but unfortunately that seems to have fallen out of favor for mathy type stuff. So anyways, thank you everybody for joining me, and until next time, good luck with your programming.